Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about a new VOD release, Lovin' Monnsters. Before we begin, let me know in the comments if you were looking forward to this or what your thoughts were if you've seen it already, and make sure to give this a thumbs up if you like these reviews. It helps me out immensely if you do that. Also, if you're new here and you like movies, whether it be blockbusters, hidden gems, or everything in between, please consider hitting that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with reviews of new releases and some classics. But now, let's jump right into it. This takes place 7 years after a monsterpocalypse occurs, where humans are forced to live underground while giant monsters dominate and roam the earth. A young man named Joel, played by Dylan O'Brien, reconnects with his high school girlfriend Aimee, played by Jessica Henwick, over the radio and begins to fall for her again. When he realizes he has nothing going on for him at his current location, he sets out to reach Aimee's colony, all while trying to survive the monsters roaming above surface. This is directed by Michael Matthews, who only directed one other film before this called Five Fingers of Marseille, and it's co-written by Matthew Robinson, who wrote Dora and the Lost City of Gold, as well as Brian Duffield, with this being the third movie he's written released this year, after Underwater and Spontaneous. And I gotta say, he's starting to become one of my favorite writers with the way he's going, between those two movies, The Babysitter, and now this. Because this was another very enjoyable, subversive movie from him. It was meant for a theatrical release before the pandemic, and under normal circumstances, it would have been a rare blockbuster that would be from a completely original idea. This isn't based on any sort of existing property, and you rarely see that anymore for big action or adventure movies such as this. Most blockbusters usually stem from some sort of existing source material, but that's not the case here. Though of course, it's not without its influences. You'll be reminded of a number of movies when watching this, from Godzilla, Pacific Rim, Zombieland, and even the aforementioned Dora and the Lost City of Gold. And while those influences are going to be very obvious in terms of setup, it still takes all those movies and meshes them together into something all its own, and it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this movie. I know Dylan O'Brien's known for the Maze Runner movies, though unfortunately I haven't seen them. Anything I've seen that he was in, he only had small supporting roles, so this is the first time I'm seeing something where he's carrying the movie, and he does an excellent job here. He's a big part of why this movie works. He's funny, charismatic, and he gives the movie a very positive, upbeat feel, all while acknowledging the seriousness of the situation at hand. And that's something that seems to be reoccurring in Duffield's comedic films like Spontaneous and The Babysitter. He gets us to take the story seriously while also being able to enjoy a lot of the quirky humor without it coming off as too jarring. We'll get flashbacks mostly in the first act of Joel's life before the Monsterpocalypse. We get a glimpse of his romance with Aimee, as well as what his family life is like. And he reflects along the way of the things he lost in that 7-year period of time. And that causes him to push forward as he thinks about everything he has to gain if he succeeds with making it to Aimee's colony. It keeps him constantly motivated. And this hits a fair amount of emotional beats, and it was a lot more than I was expecting this movie to hit. As Joel meets various people and comes across different obstacles, the movie sets up situations that you think are going to turn into these silly gags, and while there are plenty of laughs, the situation will pivot, though never too abruptly, into something a little more poignant. There's especially one situation where he encounters a talking robot that takes a turn I wasn't expecting at all, and I'll leave it at that. But the best of his interactions come in the form of a dog he runs into early on, called Boy. Anything involving this dog were some of my favorite moments, because he's not treated as just this punchline of a few jokes where he reacts to something over the top going on. He's given this full-fledged personality. So Joel finds him in an abandoned van, and his old owners are gone, and he has this one piece of clothing from them that he holds on to. And the way in which he moves certain situations forward would at times be funny, but they were mostly very sweet. And it doesn't pull from any of the tropes of the typical boy and his dog sort of movies. There were a number of times I thought they were going to move in a particular direction involving the dog, and they surprisingly did not go for any of the cliches, and I was in shock actually. So I really enjoyed how they handled this character, though I gotta admit, I'm a big fan of dogs in general, so I'm a little biased there. As far as the human interactions go, the other big standout is easily Michael Rooker, who's on his own travels with a young girl played by Ariana Greenblatt, who lost her own family, and they were both great. This is when the film's at its funniest. Ariana Greenblatt repeatedly makes fun of Dylan O'Brien, and she likes him, but she doesn't hide the fact that she cares more about the dog than him. And Michael Rooker himself is just badass as he fights off some of these monsters, while also injecting some snide remarks along the way. This will be the most obvious Zombieland influence for those who have seen that movie. Michael Rooker is dressed similarly to Woody Harrelson's character from there. They kind of have the same attitude, and both he and Ariana Greenblatt even discuss the rules of surviving in this monster world. This may rub people the wrong way, especially as I said earlier, this movie's influences aren't exactly subtle, so you may just see this as a blatant ripoff, but most of the jokes are fresh and the performances are great, so I didn't mind this so much. As for the monsters themselves, they were fun. I will admit I think a lot of the CGI here looks pretty noticeable between them and some of the locations Joel goes to, but the monsters had some fun designs and there were some solid action sequences done with them. For those who are looking for some exciting moments of Dylan O'Brien and Michael Rooker going to town on these things, you won't be disappointed there. But what I really appreciated regarding them is that it takes this Walking Dead approach approach to handling them. They're seen a decent amount of times, but they don't take up the entire movie. So when we do see them, it's kind of a unique moment, and it allows the movie to not come across as repetitive by just showing us a barrage of explosive action scenes that could potentially get tiring after a while. Despite the title, this is first and foremost a character piece. It's a coming-of-age story and a romantic comedy that uses the monsters as the backdrop rather than the centerpiece. There's a balance when it comes to how often we see them, and when they're seen, the majority of these interactions are used to help further Joel's character development. Because he's not this typical badass action star who knows exactly what it takes to survive at all times. The stakes are high for him because he's not someone who's equipped to survive on his own so easily. During his time in his own colony, when he's getting ready to set off to find Aimee, everyone else in the colony is concerned for him, mainly due to the fact that he gets scared very easily, and it overtakes his ability to properly think through a situation that could result in him getting killed. Because of that, he was given the least to do in his colony, so everyone's not totally sure he can make it on his own. And when he does set out to find Aimee, he doesn't suddenly become this big action hero. It's not a flip of the switch for him. He has to learn these things, and even as he does learn, it's very gradual. He doesn't suddenly become the master of monster hunting by the 45-minute mark or anything. While it's a fast-moving film, the process of him getting better is slow, but it feels like a smooth transition. Though he also just doesn't learn about what it takes to fight monsters. This is a coming-of-age tale in the sense that he learns a little about finding meaning in his own life. Similar to Spontaneous, there's a message in here about trying to live your life to the fullest and not taking each day for granted. And it's a very effective message, and because Joel is such a relatable character, it comes across so well. That being said, this isn't exactly a perfect movie, though I only have so many criticisms for it. I'd say mainly, I think Aimee's character could have been handled a little better. Jessica Henwick was good here, but as I mentioned earlier, most of the flashbacks are towards the beginning, and for most of the movie, that's the extent of which we see her. It's not like we're cutting back and forth between Joel and Aimee. And while she does get a little bit of character development, for most of the movie we don't know so much about her, and we care more that Joel survives because he's such a likable character, rather than caring if they reunite because of how little we know about her. Our investment only goes so far. I like what they do where he's questioning himself a few times and he's wondering, since it's been so long, will she still feel the same way about him? And there's supposed to be this air of mystery there, so I get what it was going for. But the emotional satisfaction we're supposed to get didn't 100% land. It wasn't a total miss, and it didn't take away from my enjoyment of everything else going on, but it's just not as strong as I think they wanted it to be, since we only care so much about her as a character for most of the movie. And to be honest, I had some issues with the third act. This is my least favorite part of the movie. I'm not going to spoil the direction it takes, but all I'll say is it tries shoehorning in this other storyline at the last minute in an effort to raise the stakes even further. And I wasn't exactly a fan of what they did there. They tried going for this grand action-packed finale, and I respect that, but the way they went about it didn't totally work for me. It ends on a great note, but it's just at its bumpiest in the final stretch before the finale. Overall, this movie's a lot of fun, and I think you'll really enjoy it. It's anchored by a fantastic lead performance from Dylan O'Brien, but the cast in general is great, with Michael Rooker, Ariana Greenblatt, and the dog being other big standouts. It has a lot of well-written characters, and I appreciate how the film struck a nice balance between the character drama and the monster-centered action scenes. I had a few issues regarding the third act, but they didn't ruin the experience by any means. It's available on VOD now, and this is one of the $20 releases, but of all the movies that have gone for that price so far, this is one of the few that's most worth it, so definitely check this out. Love and Monsters gets an 8 out of 10. So let me know, did you see Love and Monsters, or are you planning to see it, and what were your thoughts? Did you like the action? Did you like the comedy? And what's your favorite monster movie? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and share it, and for more movie reviews and film discussion, please make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay updated. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll catch you next time.